Can two budget drawing pads compete with my usual setup? And are they suitable for all levels of artists? I've been sent the UT2 and UT3 drawing pads from Ugee, and I'm here to give you my first impressions and let you know what makes them great, but also what needs some improvement. Alright, so let's dive right in with the unboxing. These are Android standalone devices, so you won't need to connect them to your PC, which is obviously great for portability. I'm not one for performative coffee shop sketch sessions, but knowing I can take a trip to my couch and draw is a huge win for me. The UT3 has a pretty large screen at 14.5 inches and feels surprisingly light considering its size. It comes with a smart folio to both protect the device, but it's also designed to be used as a stand. More on that later. The screen itself is anti-glare, which I think is fairly standard at this point across all tablets. Of course, it also comes with some replacement nibs, a glove to ensure palm rejection, and a pen. I'm not sure if it automatically switches on with movement, but I was surprised by the blue light. It came with a power adapter that isn't suitable for the sockets I use, but the website does state that the adapter will be configured according to the country. The folio has a few angles to rest the tablet, but these are all too high for my preference. Alright, so I'm happy to see during setup that parental controls are immediate, which as a parent I obviously think is great for those nurturing their kids' introduction to digital art. I don't use my devices for anything other than art, so I went straight into IBIS Paint to start testing what this tablet can do. A couple of squiggles here and there to test latency, which is very minimal, and I'm ready to sketch. It's not Yugee's fault that every free app on Android forces you to watch a million ads, but bear that in mind when considering the price of drawing apps alongside a tablet. Alright, so watch me do a quick sketch of Le Chat while I chat. Straight up, for my first impressions, I'm only reviewing these tablets from the perspective of an artist. There are many other functions on here that I'm sure are great, but I'm old as hell and free time to do things other than draw is so near non-existent that I have to sometimes question what is life. But I'll save my existential dread for another time. The tablet comes with two painting programs already installed, IBIS Paint, which I'm using here, and Medibang. These are both programs that I've never used before as a Clip Studio Paint and Procreate regular, so admittedly it is a learning curve for me here. The screen has a very light, gritty feel, which allows for a certain amount of comfortable resistance. During the sketch, I found there were no issues with lag or pen performance in terms of pressure sensitivity. I really enjoyed having a little more real estate with the increased screen size, and once I got into the flow and feel for both the tablet and the app, I enjoyed myself more than I anticipated. Unfortunately, I also see a pre-installed app called AI Paint Pal. Now, we all have our views on AI and where it stands when it comes to making art. For me, it goes straight into the trash. Let's unbox the UT2 and see what it has to offer. A 10.4-inch screen, which is quite a lot smaller than the UT3, but also means increased portability. The exact same screen in terms of texture and anti-glare, and an AI camera which... What? This one also comes with a smart folio, which really is something I think all brands should be including with their tablets. This really is smart. So the UT2 comes with a bunch of adjustable adapters for the plug, and I have to wonder why they didn't provide something similar for the UT3. Everything else is pretty much the same, including the pen, but for this one to turn on, I had to plug it in using the USB-C cable. It turns out that the smart folio is in fact smarter than me, because I struggled to find a sturdy way for it to sit, but I wholly suspect that this one is on me. For the sake of 100% openness and honesty, there was a major issue after unboxing the UT2, but I'll explain that situation a little later. The same startup procedure as the UT3 involving parental controls and setting up Google accounts, and the screen is looking nice and pretty. Again, latency and responsiveness on initial testing are looking good, so let's do a quick sketch. I decided to try out Medibang for this sketch, and I honestly didn't like the app at all, which definitely affected my enjoyment while using the tablet. It's so important to make sure that you find software that works for you and your workflow, because it's not an indication of the tablet itself. I did wonder at times whether Medibang was causing delays in double tapping for undo, so I did a quick check in IBIS Paint and I didn't notice that issue. If you enjoy working on a smaller screen, or if you're moving from drawing on your phone to a tablet, then honestly this is a great option. If, like me, you're used to working on a larger space, it does take a bit of time to adjust to the more compact size. Also, if any of you have used the paid version of Medibang, please let me know if there's any sort of difference, because it feels incredibly... Alright, so let's do a couple of comparisons and quick checks before moving on to pros and cons. Visually, there's a huge difference here in terms of screen space, and if you have the budget for it, I'd always suggest going for the larger screen. For me, they performed similarly in terms of latency and pen pressure, which I think is some of the more important factors for artists. The screen hardware has the same anti-glare, and even when I shine a direct light source on them, they diffuse the light really well. You can see how compared to my phone. Oddly, there is a color difference between the two devices, so I made sure to turn the brightness for both up to max to double check, and the UT3 is definitely warmer than the UT2. Hello, here I am post-editing, and after doing some research, it turns out that the UT3 has a button to switch between color modes for reading, so that's something to be aware of if you notice a color difference. This is what happens when you don't read manuals. Okay, the part that you probably really want to know, pros and cons. Let's start with the UT3. Straight out of the box, she kept crashing no matter what app I went into. Perhaps it needed an immediate update, who knows. I just restarted the device and had no issues afterwards. So the con here is immediately crashing. But I guess the pro to that is the age-old trick of turn it off and back on again. Solved everything. But still, let's not ignore that. The Smart Folio is great, but when used as a stand at this angle, it doesn't provide enough resistance when sketching. And I would consider myself pretty light-handed. I had to move the tablet onto a solid stand for both the UT3 and the UT2. So the case isn't the best when used as an easel, but the Pro, obviously a fantastic inclusion with the tablet to make sure it's protected for every other use. I could get into the costs, but that's something unique to every budget. And not just that, it's not something I can speak to since I haven't had the tablet long enough to assess its durability and reliability. So please bear that in mind. Okay, the UT2. I briefly mentioned before about some double tap delay within Medibang, which I resolved when testing in Ibis Paint, but I haven't tested it across every single app. The pen function works perfectly, but I can't help but have some doubts on touch function until I've tested it more. To further compound this issue, I noticed that palm rejection wasn't working, even when wearing the glove. My screen would occasionally jitter, which was genuinely frustrating. I don't know if this is an isolated issue with this tablet or across all of UT2, but it made for a difficult experience. I said earlier that there was a major issue after unboxing the UT2, so let's get into that. When I originally unpackaged the device, it would not switch on, even after charging it for a few hours. Considering this was factory sealed, I was incredibly disappointed. The explanation given for this was that a new warehouse employee mistakenly sent a UT2 that needed repair. Now, to be fair, the brand was quick in resolving this issue and immediately sent a replacement, which is the one you see me using in this video. And I hope that would be true in any situation for all customers, should something this unlucky happen. Final verdict, does it compete with my current setup? At the moment, no, and honestly that's mainly down to the fact that I use Procreate primarily for my digital art, which isn't available on Android. Do I think it's a suitable all-in-one tablet for artists in general? Well, the pros outweigh the cons. Most of the time these devices are on offer, and at 230 and 350 euros, it's a much better price point compared to other brands that will push you well into the thousands, especially if you're an artist new to digital art. Some of the issues I experienced may very well be problems surrounding certain apps, or even me being impatient and diving in with a plug-and-play attitude, but I can't say with absolute certainty until I've spent more time using them. For overall comfort, I'd probably pick the UT3 over the UT2 for the screen space and also the increased RAM and storage. But on a tighter budget, the UT2 does the job too. But honestly, not something I think I would pick based on the palm rejection issues I was facing. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this no-nonsense, straight-to-the-point review, and if you've tried either of these tablets, let me know your experience in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.